Hey everybody, ladies and gents, guys and girls, lions, tigers and bears, truckers, gardeners, cooks, everybody who may be listening. My name is Boy Grapes, and I'd just like to welcome you all to the Juicy Grapes podcast, starring me, Boy Grapes, as we interview a guest and talk about a variety of topics, maybe music, philosophy, politics, random stuffs like that. Before we can begin, I'd just like to bring up a few of our sponsors. First up, Chewy.com. If you don't make the right choice by shopping for your pet on Chewy, you will be arrested for animal cruelty. Next up, Guitar Center. Pretty much Reverb.com, but in person and way more overpriced because they don't care about you. Next up, Merrifield Garden Center. Are bugs a problem in your house? Buy at least 15 Venus flytraps to eat all those pesky mosquitoes and pesky house guests. And last but not least, water, because if you don't drink it, you're pretty much gonzo. And so I just like to get this podcast rolling by introducing our very talented guest, musician, guitarist, drummer, jack of all trades, Josh Skoudis.
Hello. Lovely to be on here. Hi, Mom. Anyone else? You know?
Yeah, awesome to have you on the show, man. So
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
yeah, so you are from New Jersey, correct?
Yes, dude, the armpit of America, bro. Lives up to the title, let me tell you.
A lot of people have a lot of preconceived notions, maybe some stereotypes that they think about New Jersey. I just like to ask, as somebody who's never been to Jersey, and I'm talking to somebody who actually lives in Jersey, can you maybe confirm or deny any of these stereotypes that people have about people from Jersey?
Well, all right. Everything you've heard is true, except for that Jersey accent. That's actually not the New Jersey accent. That little honk, you know what I'm talking about? That's more of a New York kind of thing, and for some reason people here get like really offended when you say like, oh, that's the Jersey accent. It's like a little inside joke, but yeah, no. Otherwise, New Jersey is it's the best and worst place ever. Really, I can't think of any other way to describe it. Like we got beaches, which is kind of cool. We got the tallest roller coaster in the world, I think, or at least it was like 5 years ago. I don't know. They're always making new shit, but yeah, no, it's otherwise kind of sick. At least it's not, Nebraska with all that corn and shit. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, fuck Nebraska. So you mentioned like that's not really the real Jersey accent. Is there a real Jersey accent, or?
Well, the nice thing about Jersey is most of the people here are just from everywhere else. You know what I mean? Like we got a massive like Italian population for some reason in New Jersey. So you're gonna hear a lot of the Mamma Mia, pizza pie kind of shit. But there is some of that. But let me see. No, there really isn't much of a New Jersey accent. Everyone just kind of talks like me for the most part, except for the Italians. Fuck them.
Man, let's just hope the Italians don't hear this. So, because it seems a lot like New Jersey, especially near New York City. That's just kind of where like a bunch of people who go to New York kind of live. And some people feel like New Jersey is just kind of like the discount New York. Would you say that's true, or does New Jersey have its own like culture, its own thing going on?
Well, the thing about New York is if you ever been there, like besides New York City, it's really boring as fuck. Like there's literally nothing to do there besides the city. Like if you know someone who lives in New York, they'll have to tell you where they live based on the proximity to the city. The nice thing about New Jersey is like I don't have to do that. You know what I mean? Like I can say like oh yeah, I'm 10 minutes from the shore or something like that. Whereas some fucker in Albany is like, oh yeah, I live like an hour from the metro, whatever. So I'd say New Jersey has a little bit of its own.
But I think because you mentioned like from the shore, like is the shore New Jersey's New York City, and is New York City New York City's New York City? Is that? I know that's a weird way of putting it, but
yeah, no. So let me see. Well, I mean, if you want to go into it, I think there really is a give and take between New York City and New Jersey, because in New Jersey we all go visit New York City all the time. Like I go there probably like once every 2-3 months.
Okay.
But the bennies come down to the beach and then they clog up the roadways and then throw their garbage and shit on the beach. So it's really a give and take.
All right. Awesome. Yeah. So, gosh, this isn't like part of one of my talking points. Have you ever been to the Met in New York City?
The Met.
The Metropolitan Art Museum. I think that's what it's called.
Actually, yes, I have. I'm a big fan of going to different art museums and stuff. And I've been to the Met a few times. It's really a beautiful thing.
I think it was like October. I went on a art field trip, and
Mhm.
I think like on the way over there, because we left super early in the morning, a few of us decided to take some Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds before we went. I don't know if you're hip to. Oh my god, I felt like I felt like I lived at least like 3 lifetimes inside the Met. I was so afraid I was gonna get lost. We went to
That
yeah. It was
I was gonna say that is a journey, bro. And suffice to say, I've never done it in that context, but that seems like a fuck ton of. Continue though. I'm enjoying it.
God, we got to where the freaking Greek statues were, and I was much more fixated on the patterns in the marble floor than the actual statues. And, oh my god, we went to Central Park afterwards. We just kind of abandoned the museum, and I was really fixated on the thought. Like I really, really wanted to see my friend Joe eat a hot dog. Like I just wanted to watch him eat a hot dog.
Well, I mean that's understandable. The whole glizzy phase going on now. You're just a little ahead of your time, I suppose.
I watched him eat the hot dog, and I felt such a like I felt like I was the hot dog, and I was going to where I was like destined to go. Like I felt like so complete. And then I said we were walking around. I thought in my mind Dwayne the Sock Johnson, and I thought that was like the funniest thing in the world.
Dwayne the Sock Johnson.
I don't know, man. I just kept laughing. But anyway, because I feel like everybody has some type of stupid story or experience while taking psychedelics. I'd just like to ask you if you have any nice little stories like that.
Well, I have a fair deal of stories. I'm not gonna lie. I've had some very terrible, legitimately terrible experiences. I remember one time, me and one of my boys, we decided to consume some shrooms. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we were just going for like a little walk around my house, right? And it wasn't really feeling it. Went inside, and just in my room, we were watching The Office, and I was eating, and I'm looking at the screen, and I looked down on my sushi, and my sushi started moving. What the fuck? And then I looked up at the screen, and I saw Kevin, and he had like 30 eyes, and I'm like, is this normal?
Bro, that fish was so raw. It was like coming alive.
No, honestly, bro, it was like swimming around on my little tray. Like, anyway, so we decided to go for a little walk. We're like, you know what? Let's go to the woods. Some transcendental fucking shit.
Yeah.
And then we start walking there, and then the trees start telling me to not go in there. So I'm like, well, shit, I gotta listen to them. So we don't. And then I'm just like staring at a pothole for like 20 minutes. This kid, he's like FaceTiming his girlfriend. We completely disconnected. And then I realized, I looked at my phone and I saw that like 30 minutes had passed, and I'm like, what the fuck? So, this isn't me fully like in my, it was still coming up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I went over into my, back into my room, ended up playing guitar for God knows how long. He was on the phone.
Oh yeah,
And
playing guitar it's so fun. You will keep going.
Yeah, I decided like, you know what? I'm gonna try to write a song, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I started playing some chords, right? And then I started just recording it on the voice memo. Well, it turns out I ended up only playing for about 2 minutes. Kind of freaked out. Went down and sat on my bed, and my phone kept recording. Like I have like hour and a half long voice memo of literally nothing. It's me repeating like a couple words over and over again with, some faint FaceTime noises in the background.
Jesus.
And then I go over to my bed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm sitting there, and these gigantic octopus tentacles come up and grab me and drag me into my bed. So I'm in this weird fucking limbo state, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just like kind of chilling there, and I see my alarm clock, right, from this weird blackness of limbo, and it's the same 5 minutes over and over, just repeating again and again. I'm freaking the fuck out. So eventually, like after felt like an eternity of that, I see like some strange white opening in this abyss, and then my dad walks in, and then I kind of like snap back, and he's like, hey, you guys doing okay in here? And then I'm like, I asked him whether he was alive or not.
Oh no.
And then he's like, well, you guys have fun. And he walked out. And I'm just thinking like, fuck, that might have been a bad thing. And then I'm like a bit too preoccupied, I guess, to really care about that. Yeah, so suffice to say, it was about another hour and a half of the octopus tentacle limbo.
Nice.
And then finally, I just kind of blurred back into reality. I was staring at this Bjork poster on my wall, and then I just completely snapped back in, and I felt like almost entirely normal. Like, it was bizarre.
That's crazy.
That was one of my more interesting experiences. I have a lot of really fucking boring stories of me like watching TV or just eating chips.
I gotta ask because I find that if I am like taking a dump, it just straight up feels like I'm giving birth. And when I urinate, like it feels like this grand release, and it's almost kind of orgasmic. And so I just like to ask, because I'm pretty sure everybody's had that experience of holding a pee just so long, like past their limit, and then you go and it's just, oh my God. Do you think?
Are we talking about like mid-trip, or are we talking
just normally? Like if you're on like a really long road trip or something. So what do you think feels better? Like peeing after you really, really gotta go, or like a climax, an orgasm? What feels better?
Well, the thing is, for me, it's the after feeling that you really need to take into account here. Like say you're spanking the panky, and then you finish. You might have felt great while you were doing it, but then after you're done, you're like, wow, I'm a terrible human being, and then you have all these existential questions and shit.
Oh my God,
like, no, dude, if you're holding in your pee
for
exactly, dude. But if you're peeing for like 2 hours, or if you're holding your pee for like 2 hours and you finally go, like, you feel amazing. You feel like you just accomplished, you just climbed fucking Mount Everest, dude. So like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna say the pee.
Do you get that like shudder up your spine after you take a piss?
Yes, dude. I always thought I was like, I didn't even know like what's wrong with me. I'm like, damn, bro, Sigmund Freud would have something to say about this shit or something. But you know what I mean? Like, every time I'm at a urinal, I just like shake a little bit, and it's useful because it gets the little.
It gets the little guys going. Yeah. You gotta like shake it off like Taylor Swift. Gosh.
Oh God.
Or pretty recently, I went to Kentucky, and we stopped at a rest stop, and there was no dividers. There was maybe like 12 urinals there, and I'm taking a leak. There's nobody else there. This big dude walks in. He goes to the one right next to me, bro. It was like the weirdest. I feel like urinal dividers should be more common, because like it's just such an invasion of privacy. I went to England. I saw one urinal divider there in my entire trip to the country there, and I thought it was
damn, dude.
That was a travesty. I love urinal dividers. I think there should be more of them. They should be law.
Dude, you want to hear a story, bro?
Yes.
So I was actually homeschooled up until my sophomore year of high school, right? So sophomore year, I started going to this one Catholic school, right? In my area.
Yeah.
And I had never used a school bathroom during school hours before. I didn't realize, like, I don't know. I feel like there actually is some stuff you need to know before you go in there. Anyway, suffice to say, they did not have urinal dividers.
Ugh.
I go to take a piss, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of chilling there. And then there's this dude next to me. And I mean, there's only two urinals, right, up against the wall. It's a small school, so
Yeah.
I start peeing, and then just absentmindedly, haphazardly, I just kind of look over a little bit, to my side, and I see this kid's fucking grain of rice dick, and I am
Ah.
scarred for life. That was my first day of school. Like, like after my first class, like that is one of the first things I did was see another kid's
You
dick.
kind of brought that upon yourself, though, to be honest.
Oh, I totally brought
that's
that
on
upon
you. You
myself.
look,
But that
bro.
that being said, like I didn't think about it, and I do have a tendency to zone out, especially when I'm using the bathroom. But suffice to say, if they had urinal dividers, that wouldn't be an issue. Like,
Don't ask questions you're
Well,
not prepared to have the answer to. That's pretty much it.
fair enough, fair enough.
Switching gears a little bit, because I know that
Mhm.
you and I are both musicians. We are
Yeah.
pretty much in that grain of rock music, and
Mhm.
in your standard rock band, there's that vocalist, there's that drummer, there's that guitarist, and it feels like the one instrument, the one person that people really overlook is the
Mhm.
bassist, and the bass is an instrument. I don't know, Jack White
Mhm.
of the White Stripes, when he recorded all the bass parts, he literally just took his
Yeah, yeah.
guitar and he pitched it down just because of how much he hated that bass sound. I gotta ask you,
Really?
because people have a variety of opinions on this. Do you think
Mhm.
bass sucks?
Well, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I would never want to play bass in a band. Like I have. It sucks ass. It really does.
Ah.
But the thing about it is like it's almost entirely genre dependent. Like if I have to have, say I'm playing like a jazzier a little bit,
Yeah.
then yeah, you got to get a bass in there. You got to get that little walking line. You got to get that little groove. If you're playing some funk, yeah, you need a little bit of slapping in there and shit. That being said, I kind of begrudgingly go about it. Like, so many people I've heard, like all of my teachers, my old drum teacher used to always tell me the bass is the most important, instrument
Oh,
in the band.
that's a little
And I'm like,
bit of a stretch.
and what I always thought was like, that's just bass players like jerking themselves off.
Yeah.
Bro. Like, come on.
That's what bass
like,
players say to make themselves feel better.
Exactly. Like, do you really want to listen to like Free Falling from Tom Petty, just the bass line? Like, no, if you're going to listen to anything isolated, it's going to be like guitar and vocal. It is not the most important part of the song. Like, fuck off.
I think the bass is it's a good building block, and it's a great liaison between rhythm and melody, and there's some really good
Oh,
bass
yeah.
lines out there, but I don't think bass is the most important instrument. And this is somebody who has
definitely
love for
not.
bass players. I started out on bass before I went over to guitar.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
I think bass is fun to play, not as fun to play as guitar.
I'd agree.
I do think bass is a little bit. I think it's overrated by other bassists. I do think it's underrated as a whole by pretty much anybody who isn't a bassist.
Yeah, no, I could definitely agree with that. I mean, look, like I understand you really do need it just to fill out the sonic airspace
Yeah.
and everything. Like it's but I think ultimately what it comes down to is I hate the mentality of, like, oh, put the shittiest guitarist on the bass. Like, no.
No,
You really
they're completely different instruments.
like, honestly, even though, say, you're playing like, some sort of local venue or whatever, you probably can't hear the bass tone overly clearly because sound guys are just terrible. They always are. But even so, like, when you have a good bass player, like, you can tell. Like, you can fake your way pretty easily on guitar. Like, sometimes there's some ambiguity, like, oh, is that guy good or not? But like, if you hear a good bass player
Yeah.
or not. You know what I mean?
I think the mark of a good bass player is where they know where they fit with the rest of the band. If you listen,
Yeah, it's like, know your place, bitch.
yeah. If you listen to the Smiths, what's his name? I think it's like Andy Rourke, something Rourke.
Oh, yeah, they had like
He-
4 different bass players. It was like Johnny Marr and Morrissey for like the whole time.
Well, Andy Rourke was like the main one. He was on like The Queen Is Dead, which is one of my favorite albums ever. But
I respect
he doesn't take the limelight, but he plays in such a way that the bass really adds something special. And Flea is the same way. His chemistry with John Frusciante and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So I think that the mark of a really good bassist is knowing where they fit with the rest of the band.
Exactly.
I
dude.
think that rule
Like-
is kind of like universal with pretty much any instrument.
I agree, dude. I mean, listen to listen to Colin Greenwood from Radiohead. Like he's one of my favorite bass players, just because everything he does, dude, is just so beautifully lined up with Ed O'Brien and Johnny Greenwood's guitar playing. Like it complements it melodically, rhythmically. It really does. I would say tie in Radiohead's whole sound and feel. Like especially on In Rainbows, dude.
Yeah.
The song
Yeah,
Nude.
Nude. Yeah.
That bass line carries the whole fucking song. Yeah, man.
Yeah. There's speaking of like how stuff meshes with the rest of the band. I know because you and I, when we make music, actually I don't know about you, I'm just assuming here. You play all the instruments, right? Like you do all this stuff yourself.
Yes.
I say I do the same thing, but for a lot of people, they like to hire session musicians, like other people to come and play, and sometimes that could mean a lot to a record. So for those tracks or those artists where the song is more of just the producer's really the one who's mixing it and putting all the parts together in the right way, and the people who are really putting most of that live effort are the session musicians. Who do you think is more important in that kind of context, like the session musicians or the producer? So I'm thinking like right now, like country music, that type of deal.
Oh yeah. I mean, honestly, in most of those settings, or at least in most of the collaborations I've done where I have pulled in other people, I what I like to do is I like to say, like, you know what, go crazy, you do your own thing. You know, there's a reason I hired you instead of anyone else. Like, you know what I mean? Like you for me, like I don't call someone into, you know, my little studio and say like all right, I have a part that I want you to play. No, I have a area I want you to play in. You know what I mean? You play whatever the fuck you want in that area, and then I'll tell you if it sounds good or not.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like in with that, I really do think it should be more about the session musicians. And honestly, I think if the producer composer himself actually does have more say in it, then it's probably just going to be more ass. You know what I mean? I like the collaborative spirit, the energy that you get, the diversity you get when you pull someone else different. You know what I mean? Like think of like rap and stuff. Like, you know, say if Kanye wrote the verses for all of his collaborators. Well, what's the point of even having a collaborator?
That's
you know what I mean?
Very good point. That's a very good point. So
especially as like, you know, multi-instrumentalist. Like, yeah, I don't play horns or whatever, but like, you know, I've called in, you know, my past Bandcamp EPs or whatever the fuck. I've called in, you know, guitarists and stuff to help me out, you know, play some parts, just because I feel their flair would be a little bit better than mine. You know what I mean? Like, you need, even for instruments I play or parts I could do, sometimes you just want that slight nuance. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you mentioned collaboration, and it seems like right now, especially in the current musical climate, collaboration is more important than ever. It seems like pretty much any project on the charts right now, or even any project underground, there's people who are featured, and but at the same time, there's a lot more home studios and people doing this themselves popping up. So it seems like the rift between collaboration and doing everything on your own is kind of it's kind of splitting that musical climate, so to speak, the vibe. So what do you think people should collaborate, or do you like the idea of somebody flying solo more?
I think somebody needs to be balanced in what they do. I mean, it depends on, again, it depends on who they are and what they're making. Like, you know, even on genres and stuff like that. Like in the case of rap, let's say, I think collaboration is really important because it just adds so much diversity. I mean, I think what makes like I'm using Kanye as an example again, like, you know, The Life of Pablo. I think some of the best parts in that album are you know, Kid Cudi's parts, or even like the one designer part in it, you know, Father Stretch My Hands part too. It's, I really do think that collaboration is very important. I think even though Kanye could definitely do all that stuff himself, I think he needs other people to come in. And but then again, like, going back to, you know, how I said it was genre dependent, I think in the indie genre, you know, there's noticeably much less collaboration. You know, obviously.
Do you think more collaboration needs to happen in the indie genre?
Well, here's the thing about the indie genre. This was sort of my always my thought about it is when you're making an indie project, an indie album, you're creating a story, you're creating an atmosphere. You know what I mean? Think of some of the biggest or most popular indie bands right now. Like let's say Always. Like
Ah,
with
I love
them,
Always.
such a
They're
good
so
band.
good. I could talk
But
about Always
think
all day. Okay, continue. Continue.
but think of their self-titled album.
Yeah.
They're creating a whole atmosphere. They're creating an entire aesthetic just around what they can do. You know what I mean? It's their story, it's their mood, it's their feel. Say if they brought on, a singer from some other indie band, like Matt Schultz from Cage the Elephant or something. I feel that would take away from that clear, beautiful aesthetic that they're cultivating, Or
Yeah.
like, think about like the Antlers. I mean, Hospice. Like the story he tells would be really interrupted if someone else hopped on and, you know, started singing along with him. I really do think that in terms of indie, it's about the artists themselves. It's not about the collaborators. It's not about anything else. It's about the aesthetic and the story that you're trying to cultivate there,
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God. I do want to mention, I do want to shout out, if you guys have not heard of them, Josh mentioned this band called Always from Canada.
Mm-hmm.
I am freaking obsessed with Always. I cannot stop listening to them. Instead of like a W, it's two V's. So it's like Alvvays.
Mm-hmm.
Both of their albums are
yeah.
so good. I think
Party Police is the banger of all bangers.
Party
That's one of my
Police is how I
songs.
got into them. But the singer Molly just has this. Her voice is just so comforting. Like it's just.
Oh yeah.
I'm definitely waiting on that new album. I hope they haven't dropped an album in 3 freaking years, and I know I want them to take their time, but I'm pumped. I'm pumped. So
Yeah,
they need.
yeah, anyway, you can.
Okay. So, what do you think? Because I know that, especially since you've been promoting your new album, you've had a little bit of a bigger social media presence. And I know that you do have multiple Instagrams, and that's really the only one that I've really seen you on. Would you consider Instagram your favorite social media platform?
I would say it is my favorite. I mean, I think just the demographic using it for the most part. Like, I think Facebook really is a boomer app. I think promoting on that is just really kind of futile. None of my friends have it. I mean, there's very little you can do with it. It's a bit confusing. I hate that the Messenger app is like a whole separate app for
fuck
no
the
reason.
Messenger app.
Like, dude, I only have I have like a 16 gigabyte phone or something like that, and 15 of those gigs are data. The other one is like photos or something. I do not have room for like 2 apps for one social media app. You know what I mean? It's useless. I think Snapchat is benign and useless, and it's really only good if you're single, desperate, and looking for girls. That's literally the only justification for it. And
I mean, you know that Snapchat was originally I think it was called like Peekaboo or something when it first launched, and it was like created to like send nudes and shit like that. No, I'm being serious.
That would make sense because that's literally the only thing it's good for.
And then they renamed it and then started advertising it as a like keep in touch with your friends type of deal. But like, come on, like because
you gotta market it like a family
the whole
friendly.
like my eyes only thing, the disappearing messages, like it's so like they couldn't really be any more obvious. That's what Snapchat was made for.
And look, like, if that's something that you're into and that's something you're doing, as long as you're not sending anything unsolicited, then, more power to you, I suppose. But it's just not for me,
Yeah. I get that. So I will say I am on Snapchat, but I do think Instagram is my favorite. I think it's very, very addictive. I'm on Instagram all the time. I have like 4 different accounts. Yeah, it's good. I love Instagram.
No, I think for Instagram is like, even comparing it to things like Reddit. Like, I fucking hate Reddit.
Oh,
but,
what?
All right. Let me clarify that stance. I don't like Reddit culture. I don't like wholesome Chungus Keanu. I don't like that. I don't like the like weird random celebrity worship. Like I feel like they're so I don't know, they're all fanboys, you know what I mean? Like I like Marvel movies, but I'm not devoting my entire life to like, rewatching every sort of thing to find every trying to create a linear timeline or something like that. Like
Yeah.
I've seen some crazy shit like that on Reddit. Like or like the Elon Musk like worship. Like I Elon Musk just exploits child labor and literally like staged a coup to harvest more cobalt or something like that. Like I don't understand why they're such fanboys. Like he is not Tony Stark, bro. Like give it up.
I think that Reddit
Um
on paper is a very good idea, and I think it's a very good
mm,
way to meet other like-minded people and talk about the things that you like.
mm,
Maybe the big boys on Reddit or most of the culture on Reddit
mm,
is
mm.
pretty cringy, but I do think as
Yeah.
a platform, Reddit is a
Mm,
very it's a good idea in
mm.
my eyes.
No, here's what I will say about Reddit. Like, I think in terms of like, actually like learning things about like college for me, Reddit was. I'm going to Rutgers in New Jersey.
Uh huh.
Reddit was honestly really useful for just finding normal people's opinions about Rutgers, about different programs, about different dorm rooms, about living spaces, restaurants, whatever. It's honestly really useful for stuff like that. They're informational, they're helpful. Um, and I love that. I think it's good. I mean, and it also does have the other side of you know r slash all this weird shit.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it can behave as like a 4chan just with a little less hentai. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
do people still
and
use
I do
4chan? What
appreciate
the
that.
hell?
No, I mean, well, you gotta love some green text. I'll browse it occasionally, but it's hard to not find anything like a
How are you on 4chan but you
little
don't like
weebish.
Reddit?
Because with all right, this is how I see it. Just the psychology of it is 4chan is a bunch of helpless, desperate, nihilistic fucks who just kind of hate everyone. But in a weird way, you can tell from a lot of these green texts that they want to get better. That this is almost a cry for help. Like these really are people who want to
So
change.
you go on
Whereas
4chan to feel sorry for people.
not to feel sorry for people, but to almost feel better about myself and almost to be motivated a bit. You know what I mean? Like the especially on like the fit boards and stuff. Once you get away from all the weird like Amazon fetish stuff, like there are a lot of people who give some legitimately helpful lifting advice, who share some great stories, and who kind of have fun, and I respect that. I feel like Reddit wallows too much in what it is, like neckbeards with fedoras kind of reveling in being a neckbeard with a fedora, you know?
I guess. Hey, you mentioned that you're going to Rutgers. Uh
Yeah.
are you is your college still on or did they switch to online? Cuz I know mine went to
We're
online.
doing we're doing all online, bro.
Ah,
I'm a little sad
I
about
was
that. Yeah.
so pissed when I'm going to Berkeley. Not
Really,
UC
bro.
Berkeley, Berkeley
Congratulations.
College of Music in Boston. So, are you
Yeah.
planning to like what are you going to major in at Rutgers?
Um I mean, for me it's kind of all up in the air, but I declared neuroscience, um right off the bat. I want to minor in like poli sci. But for me, I just have like so many interests in what I could do that I'm just gonna kind of play around with it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Do
Like
you
for me,
yeah.
oh, I was just gonna say my ideal major would be like philosophy, but like I would really like to eat when I'm older. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna refrain from that.
So
But
so this is just something to fall back on. Like do you want to do like music professionally?
oh, dude, I would love to do music professionally. That I mean, I've wanted to be like a musician artist, who could actually support himself since I was like 10 years old and started playing drums. Like it's 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 such a wonderful cathartic thing. Like literally being able to support yourself just from your artwork.
Yeah.
Like it just feels so wonderfully validating and I don't know. Like for me, I was never one of those people. Like I never like wanted to go platinum with every album I had and top every Billboard charts. But like I want to I've always wanted to like make art that people listen to and be like, yeah, you know what, this makes me feel better about what I'm going through, or I really relate to this, or you know, I really appreciate this little nuance that they had and what they did. You know, I've always wanted to do something like that, but I realize it is kind of unrealistic, I suppose, and it's hard as
Well,
fuck.
I don't. I guess I do feel the same way about you. Well, about your thoughts on that. Except obviously my parents are not that happy with my
Mhm,
decision to do music. But really, what
mhm,
here's my thought on it. Here's my thought on it.
mhm,
Like it's my
mhm,
life, and I feel like I could either just take a chance or just kind
mhm,
of let it go by me. And you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
mhm.
Why would I settle for
Yeah,
something that I don't even know is not even gonna like you don't even know that music is or is not gonna pan out. Something like I would rather have it
yeah,
pan out, might as well do it. And it's my life to live. And really
mhm,
what my goal is for me personally,
mhm,
as long as
mhm.
I can afford my own place and I could afford to eat, then I think I'll be good. Like from just my art. Like I'm not looking
Yeah,
for like you said, like I'm not looking for, topping any charts, but I think like I would have definitely reached my goal and it would have definitely made it if I can support myself just from my own art.
yeah. And dude, I totally respect that, and I do kind of feel the same way. Like I understand that, you know, it's always something I want to. I don't know. It's always something I want to try for. You know what I mean? If I know, you know, if I'm sitting on my deathbed when I'm old and I'm like, damn, like what if I actually tried harder? What if I, you know, actually kept pushing or whatever? Like I'm never gonna give up putting my art there, putting myself
Yeah,
out
of
there,
course. Yeah, you
and
could
doing stuff
always.
like that.
Yeah, I'm glad that you definitely need to keep making music while you're out there in college because your music is very good.
Oh yeah, I appreciate that, bro. You know, I especially want to you know, like get connected in the Rutgers like music scene and stuff like that. Like there's some really great bands playing in, you know, uh state schools. Like there's a lot of great people in those areas. You know, I know some people up in Delaware, you know, that are decently active in the scene, and
Yeah, that's
it's
awesome.
just a great community, bro, you know. So I think that's really one of the main reasons I chose Rutgers. It's just it's this behemoth of a school, you know,
Jeez,
67,000 kids or some shit like that. Like there's definitely a large music
that's
subculture in there,
awesome.
and I
Yeah.
I, I
So
can't wait to get a part of that, bro.
while we're on that topic of you making music, you just put an album out. Is that true? Tell us about that.
Yes. Oh yes. So you know, I during the start of quarantine, you know, I was about 3 days in, and you know, I was just getting like I was getting some cabin fever, so I started you know, I didn't really have a computer of my own at the time that actually worked or ran any sort of music program. So I would just, you know, borrow my mom's computer, and I'd go downstairs. You know, I'd have a bunch of songs. You know, I'd write maybe 2 or 3 songs a day because I just had so much time to myself. And I just started recording a couple of them on GarageBand, and then some of them started to get like actually
Yeah.
pretty good, and I'm like, shit, bro. Like maybe I should make an EP. One of my buddies, his name's Will. He came out with this EP at the beginning of quarantine. Yeah, Plague Skater is their name. I'd definitely recommend you check him out. Plugging my boy Will. But you know, like he recorded it all himself on GarageBand. He dropped it, and you know, he got in with a little label, and they started, you know, kind of pushing his stuff, and you know, he's having a lot of fun. So I'm like,
That's
you know,
awesome.
I think I could do that, you know. And I started making my stuff, and then you know, I feel like it just sort of transcended like a, you know, like, oh, I'm just gonna spend my time during quarantine like making shit and releasing it. Like I feel like
Yeah,
it
it
became
kind
a
of it
lot
kind of
more
took a
than
mind
that.
of
You
its
know what I
own. Like
mean?
it
Like
just
yeah, I
manifested
actually
itself.
once I got to the exactly, dude. Like once I got to the end of it, I'm like this is, you know, legitimately an artistic statement. This is some of the most brutally honest and, you know, you know, honest and I don't know, meticulous music I've ever made. And I was just really happy about that. I suppose it really helped
All
me
right,
through
awesome.
this 6 month
album
storm.
called, and where can we find it?
My album is it's called Hands Drawing Hands. It's on pretty much every streaming platform. Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. I don't even know if there are. I don't know any more streaming platforms besides that. I mean, it's on fucking YouTube. You can go on Instagram and
All right,
look
awesome.
through the songs and you'll find some of my shit on there.
Yeah, DistroKid's
It's
amazing.
really
All
I
right,
gotta
so
love
y'all make
DistroKid,
sure
bro.
to check out Hands Drawing Hands, and I just like to thank my wonderful guest Josh
Mm-hmm.
Skoudis for stopping by, and yeah, thank you for the discussion. All right, and
Of
thank
course,
you
bro. I
all
really
out
enjoyed
there
this.
for listening to the Juicy Grapes podcast, and I will catch you all next episode. See you guys.